mean, you're about to start this new chapter at Inospace, and you've been in the logistics environment, career environment for a very long time. So why the change, and what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, look, I think what first appealed to me when I arrived at Inospace is that it just had this vibe about it. I can't really place it, but when you just get that fit, straight away walking into the doors at Island Works, there was just a hubbub about this whole business center that existed. And I was actually blown away because, what really appealed to me was the fact that me as an entrepreneur myself, it appeals to me. And, walking through the facility, walking through the premises, I was really, really excited at this new up and coming environment, which I didn't really hear of. I hadn't really heard of much. I think that gave me a little bit of perspective of, what it is that I like, what it is that I'm drawn to. Being very fortunate to have a career in both a family-run business as well as in a big corporate. It just comes down to style. It comes down to a style that I enjoy and a style that I love.
So I mean, obviously, the entrepreneurial environment is your style.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in terms of thinking, I think that over a period of time, certain businesses do corporatize over a period of time, but in its infancy, there is a buzz about it. There's a hustle about it, and that's what appeals to me most. So looking at this journey, looking at the people, looking at the culture that you kind of received from the onset is one of innovation, one of creativity, one of engagement, which for me resonates with an entrepreneurial environment.
So in Inospace, I mean, you're coming into a senior role from day one, and it's an entrepreneurial role. So. And it's in the fulfillment space, and obviously you've been in this in the whole environment for a while, in the ecosystem. I mean, have you seen changes? I mean, what was it like when you first started?
I must be honest, with the kind of birth of e-commerce, if you will, for lack of a bit of an analogy, I think it has put transport as a bit of a sexier industry. Traditionally, it was always just kind of trucks.
Boys from Benoni.
The Buckies, the Bucky Brigade, as guys would call them. And it created a bit of sophistication in the market. It created the understanding of route optimization, purely because I think a lot of businesses historically were set up from a B2B model rather than a B2C model. And traditionally B2B would always be seen as an easier delivery. So planning was easier, loading was easier, frequency was easier. Whereas I think the volatility with B2C came with complexions.
But I mean, obviously e-commerce is the big game changer. I mean, it's still a game changer. And I feel that we're still on this long road, and in e-commerce, we're actually still early days. But I mean, did you see that? Because obviously if you've been around for the last decade.
Yeah, so it's brought about a lot of its challenges. I think, like I mentioned, I think a B2C delivery being a lot difficult, a harder delivery, as you will. It has created a lot more tech-driven environments, enablement environments for us to understand consumer behavior, consumer behavioral patterns in their makeup of their day-to-day activity. And I think that is some of the biggest challenges that some of the bigger corporates are facing at this point in time, is the ability to control the cost element, the variable cost element that comes in that. Because I think for the most part, when you have a set plan, set route, a set volume threshold, it's a lot easier to plan. Whereas the volatility now, there's hidden costs and hidden things that creep in. So it's an interesting space, because I think for the most part, we're still not 100% there where I think Europe is. And I think also our behavioral patterns on our consumer is very different, just in the sheer makeup of their day-to-day activity.
So David, I mean, if you could explain it, I say if you could explain it to your mother, but probably your mother would know. Yeah. But could you explain like fulfillment? I mean, it's we always presume people know what it is today, because it's probably been around for a very long time, but it's grown in stature. But what would you explain fulfillment to your to your son as a kid?
So to answer the question pointed is that I think it is a whole ecosystem around the delivery of a parcel that creates a supply chain from the time the consumer places the order to the time.
So somebody goes on take a lot, or they go on and check a 60/60, then it triggers a whole lot of stuff on the back end.
Yeah, it's a whole supply chain shift and change and model on ease of access, being cost conscious, speed, reliability, convenience. And I think those are what has made e-commerce a lot more attractive and a lot sexier, which has also given a lot of traditional entrepreneurs access to a lot of tech-driven environments that perhaps wasn't necessarily something that they thought was a need at the time.
I mean, do you think South Africa's up there? I mean, with what's going on in obviously in Europe, in the States, in Asia?
I think so. I do believe that. If I look at traditionally some of your direct selling businesses, because South Africa has such a high unemployment rate, the need to start a business or the need to be part of earning disposable income is far higher than what your traditional Europe would look like. Traditionally, where we've seen some market leading initiatives has come from your poorer economic environments, because based on sheer volume, there's scale and there's people that need disposable income. So it affects them immediately.
Who you think right now is like the winner in e-commerce in South Africa? Who's ahead of the rest? I mean, is it the big retailers? So you've obviously in places like Shoprite, Checkers going into it. I mean, we're going to talk about SMEs in a moment, because I mean, that's obviously the place that Inospace occupies. And I'm really interested to hear your view on how you and we are going to help these smaller businesses actually, truth be told, to compete with the big ones in terms of delivery and in terms of, everybody wants everything immediately.
Look, I think it's easy for one to say, like, yes, the likes of Checkers and Amazon and Takealot have the majority of the market share, but I think they also have pockets of excellence.
In terms of what they deliver.
In terms of what they deliver and the commodity that they deliver, right? One would naturally be drawn to the fact that, yes, maybe those are the people or the corporates that you would compare yourself to. But I don't think at this point in time, one particular company has a captive market. And the reason why I say that is because what I'm keeping a very close eye on is this whole talk around decentralized fulfillment. And I think as a South African economy, we are still trying to find what works. But I don't think right now somebody in isolation has a complete captive market. I do think that there's opportunities, and the opportunities that do exist presents itself to entrepreneurs collaborating and being able to actually win in areas that they're strong at and they're good at. A Checker 60 doesn't necessarily mean that they compete with a Takealot.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily mean they compete with an Amazon. It's a completely different makeup of commodity, a different complete behavioral pattern. I think someone would be okay to have a book delivered an hour later as opposed to the milk that they need right now. I think it's just a very, very different commodity that they move in. So in terms of speed, reliability, and tech, yeah, maybe you could say that Checkers 60 has got something right. But from a last mile fulfillment perspective, on a transport element, the two are two very different.
Looking at Inospace and understanding the model, I mean, you haven't started yet, but where do you see the biggest opportunity in Inospace, but probably more importantly for the customers, both our existing customers, close to 2,000, smaller businesses? Where do you see the big moment and the big changes and the big opportunity?
Well, the big opportunity I see with Inospace is you've got this ecosystem that exists all in one area, all under one roof, if you want to call it that. I think that presents itself a very, very unique model to most fulfillment strategies. I think where a lot of entrepreneurs are nervous is to relinquish a bit of control, whereas this ecosystem presents an opportunity where they still have access to their control, with a fulfillment house being right on your doorstep. In connection with that, I think where there's other opportunities that exist there's opportunities to collab with some of your entrepreneurs that are in the same business park as you.
What do you see doing in the first 3 months, and where's your bigger picture? I mean, ultimately, you want to be serving these smaller businesses, these customers with fulfillment. But what would you do? I mean, you don't have to divulge your exact plans, but what would your sort of rollout be? What would you ideally like to achieve over the next 12 months?
I think for the most part, what is really, really important is that going into the next 3 months rather than the next 12 months is a lot of businesses are looking for overflow facilities. The overarching question that always comes into mind is, how quick can we set it up? What sort of resource do we need? At what cost is this overflow going to present itself?
So you were saying that we a Joburg company would do the overflow in Cape Town, or or both?
So I think both. I think wherever they would find themselves. I think sometimes in a Joburg environment, there's facilities that would reach certain capacity over this period, particularly heading into your December rush. I've seen many corporates over the years look for alternative space just to give them a little bit of breathing space and the ability to flex during a very, very tough and a very, very volatile period, on the basis that you don't really know how much you're going to receive. You can only do so much forward cover and forward planning.
Sure.
And I think for the most part, offering a flexible solution that could kind of flex as and when is needed is where an Inospace could come in. You've got a fulfillment house right on your doorstep that you don't necessarily have to outlay all this capital.
What do you think the challenges that are still unresolved in fulfillment are?
So I think some of the challenges that are still unresolved is corporates or businesses being able to mitigate their cost element. I think because traditionally a lot of businesses had to outlay a lot of capital, and when it comes to an overflow facility process or an overflow, there's that still notion in the market that you got to take out a 6-month lease or 12-month lease. Nobody really, from a capital outlay perspective, is flexi. And I think that's where a lot of the unsolved challenges at this point in time is, during your busiest period, being able to flex. But quickly, when it gets into a quieter period, is to extrapolate that cost. And that's where I think that Inospace offers an exceptionally unique opportunity, is on the basis that they have ancillary services where you could tap into at any one time. You have a bouquet of services that will suit or will be a niche for your business at a particular point in time, but it gives you that freedom of flexibility. And if you look at where the market is leading towards today, everything is around trust, reliability, and convenience. This is one of those unique opportunities where there is flexibility, there is convenience in making sure that you are able to mitigate your risk through a more cost-effective process, but having the ability to flex during your high and busy periods.